Welcome to Device Casting Couch, Season 1, Episode 6. Today we'll be discussing bug found in Signal app, government's delaying Facebook encryption, and hide your kids, hide your wife. Google Nest is in your house tonight. Joining me today is John. I am Ryan, and let's get into it. Do you want to start with the Signal app bug, John?
Oh yeah. So Signal Private Messenger is like promoted as one of the most secure messengers in the world, and it has a pretty good track record. But we're just going to discuss a bug that was found. It has since been patched, just so everyone can keep using it. It's still pretty good. But basically, there's a Google Project Zero researcher, Natalie Savanovich. She discovered this logical vulnerability in Signal's app for Android, which basically allows a malicious caller to force the other party to answer. So if you call them and they don't click answer, that person can force it without requiring the other person's interaction. So basically, they could listen in on the other person's device and all the surrounding conversations. So it's kind of concerning.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Could be used for spying. So it has been patched.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about some of the technical stuff. They were saying, like, in the Android client, there's this handle call connect that causes the call to finish connecting during normal use. So basically, when it accepts the call of the user and you click accept, and when the caller device receives an incoming connect message indicating that callee has accepted the message. But using a modified client, it's possible to send that connect message to the callee device when there's an incoming call and the other person hasn't accepted. This will cause the call to be answered automatically without the other person interacting with it at all. And there's some more detail. Definitely, it talks about WebRTC and some of the limitations of that. But I'll just leave the link in the description. It says this flaw also affects the iOS version, so it's not just Android. But basically, the people at the Hacker News reached out to Signal. Mm-hmm. And they immediately acknowledged the issue and patched it within a few hours on the same day. So if you have version 4.47.7, you are good to go. So this is a good thing. Always keep your apps up to date. That way you don't have any of these little bugs listening to your conversations and everything.
And honestly, that's pretty refreshing that they actually took care of it that quickly. I mean,
they did it quick. Like I said, within a few hours in the same day. Like it just kind of shows how committed the team is to keeping Signal.
That's a really good turnaround. I mean, it took Capital 127 days to respond.
Exactly.
So it's refreshing. So can this be sent from? Did you need like a computer for this or software? Like how is this being implemented? How is the message being sent for the automatic pickup?
It just says to using a modified client. So I imagine it's just like a Signal app that's been modified to send that command.
Okay. So you just mess with the app a little bit, and then you can just have it automatically send.
Yeah. It doesn't really say too clear. I imagine they don't want to release that kind of modified client because this is from Google Project Zero, which we've discussed in a previous episode. They're really good at finding 0 days and letting the companies know about it.
Mm-hmm. That's something Google's good at. And speaking of that, something Google is not good at, securing their devices apparently. Because so I went over this. I was going on slash.com and or Slashdot, I guess, and they had this story on here about a Google Nest being hacked. And Google Nest is it's like kind of like Alexa, but not really. It's more integrated into your home. You can like hook it up to your thermostat, and you can have like set up cameras all around your house and stuff like that. So it's basically like your home AI. Mm-hmm. But Jack Newcomb, he's the chief operating officer for a company, some editing company. But I guess he got a call from his nanny one day, and she asked if he was trying to call through the Nest app to their 18-month-old son. And he was like, obviously, he's like, no, I haven't tried to call. So apparently someone had hacked into their Nest and their Google Nest and was talking to their kid. And I guess they started like taunting the nanny, saying that their house looked really nice and The nanny like just didn't respond, and then the person, the lady on that had hacked in, got super like pissed off and said she was gonna. She threatened that she was going to come for the baby and like kidnap the kid if they didn't answer. So, I mean, it's funny now, but I can only imagine how like terrifying that would be if that was, if that was my kid. So anyway, the nanny took the kid out of the house and went to the park. Newcomb came home and unplugged all his cameras, changed all his passwords. So he started Googling, my Nest camera has been hacked. What can I do? And apparently this happens a lot. And I also Googled it, and there was dozens and dozens of stories on this. There was another couple California couple, I guess they received an official sounding warning over their Nest that said that North Korea was attacking them. And that they had 3 hours. They had 3 hours to evacuate. So just some less malicious than others, I guess. But still, I mean, it's pretty bad. So
what is the root cause of this? Is it some kind of exploit, or is it user error? Or
so that's the interesting part. Google says that it is not their issue. So Google Nest, it used to be super vulnerable. You could basically just send a Bluetooth signal to it, and it would just shut it down. So if someone wanted to like break into your house, this was back in I think 2016. Their firmware had a bunch of holes in it, and you could basically just send a Bluetooth signal, and it would just shut all the cameras down, and someone could just break into your house. But they patched that one. But this one they're saying is on the user, and I kind of agree. I don't know. I kind of see both sides with this one, because he called Google, and Google basically just didn't want anything to do with it. They weren't responding to his emails. They kept on passing him off to some third party like tech support when he was calling. They just didn't want to deal with this issue. Apparently they get these calls often. But I guess all they kept on saying was, you need to make a stronger password, and you need to enable two-factor authentication, which means every time you log into your Nest, you have to click OK, like an SMS, or you have to put in a code from a text or something like that.
Does it use like Google Authenticator?
Exactly, yeah. It would be something similar to that. It would be two-factor authentication. They didn't say exactly what app they would use, but he said it would be through his cell phone. So I'm guessing either through Google Authenticator or some sort of two-factor. So which is good. People should be doing that. I mean, anything you use and you care about, and if there's anything you use and you care about your login info for it, you should be using two-factor authentication and some sort of stronger password. So I kind of see Google's side with this, that people should be using this. However, I do think it would be pretty easy for them to implement stronger like password policy where you couldn't even make a weak password. That would be the easiest solution for me on Google's side. So I looked a little deeper into how this was happening. And apparently this guy says that his email and password were compromised on the internet. So that's how people were getting in. So they were using his email and password, and then they were basically just putting it into a program and just running it up against dozens of programs to see, or dozens of websites to see if those login credentials worked elsewhere. So that's another factor that I kind of see Google's point. You shouldn't be using, the same password for all your stuff. I mean, I know a lot of people are guilty of it. I've been guilty of it at certain points, using the same password. When you're in a rush, you're like, well, I know this password, so I'll just put that in. But if you want something to be secure, you shouldn't use the same password. So
speaking of passwords, this is a plug. There's no like incentive for me, but it's something I actually use. It's called Bitwarden.
Oh yeah,
and it's an open source like password manager, and like the cool thing is, so like with LastPass and Dashlane and stuff like that, your passwords are stored on their servers. And so like if you don't want to get into that, Bitwarden will store it on their servers, but there's also a Docker app. You can set up your own server if you really are paranoid that someone else will get it. You can set up your own server, so that way you can still access your passwords across the internet, but it's on your own hardware, so you don't have to worry about stuff like that. And it has a password generator, so you can select how many characters and stuff like that. And I've started using it on a lot of websites. That way I don't have this reusing the same password kind of issue like a lot of people have. So
no, I use Bitwarden as well. Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, I use them for pretty much everything, just because, like you said, they have a password generator. So you don't have to know the password. You just make a strong password, generate a strong password, and then it's just in your Bitwarden. You just look it up and put it in.
Yeah, and like I said, it's open source, so like people can look at the code and audit it. It's not like I don't remember which one it is, but one of them, I think it's LastPass. They've gotten hacked a couple times.
Yeah, they have. But a lot of the password managers have gotten hacked. I don't think Bitwarden has.
Not to my knowledge. And
yeah, I haven't heard of them getting hacked.
Like I said, you can run your own server, so
yeah, that's true.
Be like super paranoid. I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'd be up for it. But yeah, if you want to use something like that, again, they're not sponsoring us or anything like that. It's just something that we use. Bitwarden, if you want to sponsor us, we are open to sponsorship. But yeah, there's no incentive for us. We both use them. We both like it. As far as we've been, using it, nothing. They haven't gotten hacked or anything like that so far. So they've been pretty good. But yeah, I just thought I'd bring up that story. So to protect yourself, again, use two-step authentication. Just enable it in the app. I don't know why it's not enabled by default, but just enable it. Change your password regularly and try to use a stronger password, not your, whatever your kid's name and birth date or something like that. Like use something a little better, throw some characters in there or something like that. But yeah, just protect yourself, because obviously Google, either they've done all they can, which I don't know, they think they have. They said it's on the user to protect themselves. So Google isn't going to do anything further with this. So take it upon yourself to please protect yourself from this, because I mean that's pretty creepy that people are spying on your kids. Do you want to go into your story, John?
Oh yes. So let's talk about. We'll get a little some. It kind of ties in with your whole watching children and everything. And
oh no.
So basically, the feds have announced that they've shut down one of the largest dark web child abuse sites, and that the South Korean admin who was running it was arrested. We'll talk a little bit more about him, but just his name is Jong-woo Sun. Mm-hmm. So we'll just keep that in the back of your mind. But basically, the United States Department of Justice has arrested hundreds of criminals in this global crackdown that they're doing after taking down the largest known child porn site on the dark web. And they're using the Bitcoin payments that were being paid and tracing those, because while Bitcoin doesn't have your name tied to it, it still is trackable because the public ledger is out there, and you can see every transaction. But continue with the story. The site in question is called Welcome to Video, and it's been operating from June 2015 until March 2018. And apparently it had over 250,000 sexual exploitation videos of children's, toddlers, and infants. Which they said is roughly over 8 terabytes of data. So
wow.
Some slight good news is as they cracked down on this and everything, they were able to rescue at least 23 children residing in the United States, Spain, and the United Kingdom. They were being actively abused by users of the Welcome to Video site, and which operates on Tor. I don't know if I said that before, but
yeah.
And so the interesting thing is how they caught the site admin. Basically, it sounds like he wasn't coding it very good, because they said merely reviewing the HTML source code of the site in the browser revealed the original IP address of the server, which the site was hosted from. And then they tracked the IP address then they tracked it back to the server, which was located inside the bedroom of the site admin, Jong-woo Sun's house in South Korea. So he's running this out of his bedroom.
Jeez.
And here, let me read the document. So this is one of the documents they have that the Hacker News has pulled up. But basically it says, on or about September 1st, 2017, law enforcement reviewed the source code of the Welcome to Videos homepage, which could be viewed by right-clicking on the website and selecting View Page Source. So, like I said, it wasn't very technical what they did. They didn't have to do anything crazy. This guy was obviously just not the brightest when it came to websites and everything. Even I know not to do that. Not that I'm trying to do anything malicious, but basically,
if you're gonna run a site like that, I mean, you probably shouldn't be stupid. Maybe that's why you're running the site in the first place, but still, like,
so not only was like the site had the IP address on it. He was hosting it in his bedroom. Like that, that kind of just defeat everything. You want to be separated from that, like
Yeah,
it
run
took
from a remote
forever
server or
for
something.
what was that?
Run from a remote server or something.
Oh yeah. Because if we look at the Silk Road case, I'm not going to delve too deep into it. That guy, like the server was remote. He would log onto it from a public library. Like, he was taking every precaution. He just kind of messed up earlier, and they were able to track him down.
Yeah, I was gonna say he still got caught, but still,
it took forever though. Anyway, so after they viewed the page source by right-clicking and doing all that, the United States issued a warrant for Zahn's arrest in February 2018. And the federal authorities in South Korea then arrested him on March 5th, 2018, and seized the server used to operate Welcome to Video. He's currently serving 18-month sentence in South Korea, but a federal grand jury in Washington, D.C. Unsealed a 9-count indictment against him, according to this not too long ago. This says yesterday. I'm not sure when the article was posted. But basically, the U.S. authorities are seeking his extradition to face justice.
Oh, yeah, I hope he does, because goodness gracious, freaking nail him with whatever you can. That's definitely good news.
Oh, there's more to it. I'm not done yet.
Oh, no.
So, like I said, with the seizing the server and everything, they were also able to arrest 337 users from all over the world: the U.S., the U.K., South Korea, Canada, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Ireland, Germany, Czech Republic, Spain, Brazil, and Australia.
Wow.
And it says they could download videos by uploading new videos, referring new users, or paying in supposedly anonymous cryptocurrency Bitcoin. So it makes it sound like if you wanted to download a video, you had to fuel new content or get other pedophiles to join. But here's another interesting thing. So of these people arrested, at least 2 former federal law enforcement officials were allegedly involved in the child porn site. There was a Paul Casey Whipple, who's a 35-year-old U.S. Border Patrol agent, and a Richard Nikolai Grotowski, who was a former HSI agent, which is Homeland Security Investigations.
Big oof.
And then other people are getting worried. So 2 people have committed suicide because of the search warrants. And
jeez.
But yeah, at least they've cracked it down. It's pretty big.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's even more good news.
Yeah.
I mean,
8 terabytes of data.
Exactly. I mean, and the 20 freaking kids. Like, jeez. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely good news. I mean, I'm all for, the deep web and stuff like that and keeping things anonymous. But at some point, I do agree with law enforcement looking into this and actually cracking down on people. Because as much as I like the kind of libertarian side of it, there has to be some sort of order. So I'm definitely glad. That's a huge win. That's good.
Oh, one of the other things I didn't see was one of the last comments. It says, during its 3-year operation, the site received at least 420 Bitcoin, which is equivalent to $370,000 at the time.
At the time.
At the time the site was taken down, my bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So obviously, back when it was $20,000 of Bitcoin, that's a whole lot of money right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that could have been a good chunk of change. Jeez. All right. Well, that's definitely some good news. All right. Well, I'm gonna go over this right to repair. So if anyone doesn't know already, right to repair is legislation that would require electronics manufacturers to sell repair parts to consumers and independent repair shops. On top of that, the laws would require manufacturers to make diagnostic and service manuals available to the public. So basically, a corporation like Apple, and I choose them because they've been opposing this for years. If someone wanted to open up a repair shop for Apple to basically compete with like the Genius Bar and stuff like that, people could just go there and Apple would, by law, be required to sell them the proprietary parts to fix, and the knowledge, obviously the service manuals, to fix any of Apple's stuff. So that's basically what the right to repair in electronics. This right to repair has actually gone over a bunch of industries.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think it's affected Tesla with their electronic cars.
Yes, it has. In 2012, I believe, the automobile right to repair passed in Massachusetts, and the automotive industry basically just said that they would follow Massachusetts right to repair legislation nationally, just because they didn't want to have to deal with the state by state basis. So they just went ahead and just kind of caved and said, yeah, we'll just follow that, so we don't have to deal with all the other BS. So what that means is if any mom and pop shop wants to start repairing vehicles, any manufacturer cannot, by law, keep any service manuals to themselves or anything like that. Because
Well, I've read some stuff differently. So Tesla was not one of the signatories of the right to repair agreement between aftermarket and automakers.
Mhm.
And has been one of the few exceptions for the OEMs to make repair procedures available to independent shops and the public at large. Like, and I know there's a dude on YouTube. His name's Rich Rebuild. He like has bought like Teslas, and he's fought them. Like he's called them up, like, "Hey, can I order this part?" And they're like, "No." "Can I do this?" "No." And basically, like Tesla wants you to send their car back to them, and they'll fix it and then send it back. Where this dude Rich Rebuild, he's like pretty much rebuilt a car from the ground up. Like he bought 2 salvaged Tesla, was it the Model S, I think, and he basically took parts from both of them and just made one working car for like $5,000. I think it was 5,300 to be exact. But
Wow.
so I know this right to repair. Like, while most automakers are cool with it, it's definitely extends into like the car world as well with Tesla and their electronic cars.
Yeah, Tesla I didn't know about. I thought just all the automotive industry, it just said the automotive industry was in there, but that's interesting that they're still fighting this. Because every other automotive industry automotive manufacturer has said that they would follow this nationally. So it's really weird that Tesla's still holding out for this.
And unless something's changed recently, like some of this is dated, but I still believe it, to my best of my knowledge, that this is still going on with Tesla. Like they're still trying to fight this issue.
Wow, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I'm sure Tesla's under pressure. I mean, if every other manufacturer has already followed through, I'm sure Tesla's being pressured by I don't know, some sort of mechanics have to be trying to start Tesla repair shops and would want the service manuals and parts for that. But as far as the electronics right to repair, Apple did finally back down. So they've been the biggest obstacle and biggest opponent of right to repair because they have a lot of parts that are specific to Apple, and they've basically been saying that because of trade secrets and stuff like that, that was basically what they were throwing up, saying that, okay, this is a trade secret, we can't release this because we don't want to. We don't want our competitors to know what we're building, blah, blah, blah. But Apple has finally backed down in September of this year. They've eased back on their longstanding policies regarding independent repair shops. Until recently, these shops have been unable to access specialized tools, diagrams, and approved parts required to perform safe, easy repairs for common product issues. But now, Apple's kind of backed off on it a little bit. They said that they would be following any legislation that gets passed. It is being pushed in a lot of states by Gay Gordon Byrne. She's the executive director of Repair.org, and she's been pushing this all around the country. So far, it has not passed in a single state. However, it is going up in Massachusetts to be voted on. And if it passes there, like we saw with the automotive industry, where it just passed in Massachusetts and then everyone caved. So hopefully that will also happen in Massachusetts with this electronics right to repair. So there are some contentions with this. So Apple, they made this program called the Apple's Independent Repair Provider, and basically you can apply if you're like a repair company, you can apply to this program, and you have a chance at official certification from Apple to repair their products. So as of now, the program does require a repair shop to have at least one approved technician on staff who can apply for free training and certification through Apple. However, a lot of shops and proponents of the right to repair say it's still not good enough. So the first point of contention is the strict requirements businesses must go through in order to receive an official repair of certification. And many critics view the inclusion of these requirements in the program as a means of continuing the repair monopoly, because Apple controls that whole program, obviously. So the second issue that people have with it, it involves Apple's continuous use of hostile products. So like gluing down batteries.
Use of what?
Hostile assembly methods.
Oh, okay.
So like gluing down batteries or putting delicate wires in places where they could be damaged, or using the pentalobe pentalobe screws, I think they're called, like the 5-point screws, which is an odd screw to use, and using them in all different sizes throughout the device, just making it harder basically for people to repair them quickly and efficiently. So these are two things that the right to repair advocates have seen as not good enough basically from Apple. So they actually want to pass legislation that would make it basically law for them to follow, at least in Massachusetts. But as we saw with the automotive right to repair, hopefully that will follow through to the federal level. So as I said, Gay Gordon Byron is the executive director of repair.org. She's been going around the country trying to push this. And they also have the backing from iFixit. I don't know if you've heard of them, John. I assume you have.
I actually have one of their toolkits that has like 50 different screwdrivers, so it has all those weird
nice.
Just like you're talking about.
Yeah, I've gone there several times. They have dozens and dozens and dozens of manuals and instructions on how to fix like literally anything. Like there's tons of stuff on there. I found a repair manual for fixing a tear in a Pagoda down coat. Like yeah, seriously, like who
like
would
a jacket?
Yeah, like a jacket, like a Pagoda jacket, how to fix a tear in a Pagoda jacket. And like they have, it's not just electronics. Like if you want to repair anything on there, and you can also submit a repair manual as well, because it's all written by people. These aren't official. These aren't official manuals. These are written for people that may not have access to those manuals because of laws that are in place, or for whatever reason, or maybe they're just not available. I mean, I'm sure Pagoda doesn't have a manual on how to repair their coats. So like these are just written by people who have had success repairing something, and then they write a manual on how to do it. So really great site if you want to look it up. But hopefully this passes. I believe they are going to have a 3-hour hearing on this act. I believe the 21st of October, sometime next week. I can't remember exactly when, but sometime next week. So hopefully that passes, because I think that would be definitely a huge win for the electronics industry.
No, that's definitely great, because I know I personally, I like to repair anything I can. It's generally cheaper instead of buying a whole new device.
Oh, yeah.
For instance, I had a OnePlus 3, and the screen cracked on it, and then the battery was going bad, so I replaced the screen and the battery, and it was only like maybe $80, and then that even though that phone's older, the phones were still selling for about $300, I think, on eBay and Amazon. Yep. I definitely agree that this should be pushed and make repairing stuff easier than having someone else have to tear it down and get non-OEM parts and stuff like that.
Exactly, and I don't think this would hurt these industries too much. Apple maybe a little more, because they're pretty pricey. So if you would probably find a lot better price at a like an independent repairer, or if you did it yourself. So Apple, I could see, and I understand why they were such a big opponents of it. I don't agree with it, but I understand why. That I could see that hurting them quite a bit. But if you have the knowledge to repair something, or you're a mom and pop independent store, I definitely think you should have the right to repair products that companies are putting out. I mean, look at the mechanic industry. Like, you don't go to the dealer every single time you have an issue. You usually find a better price elsewhere. And the automotive industry is doing just fine. So I don't think this is such a big deal.
Yeah, and the hardest part for fixing devices, like especially your phones, is the parts are just so small. Like some of those wires have to be small and delicate just because of how they squeeze everything in there.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I know I accidentally messed up an antenna cable on one of my phones, and cell phone service is a little spotty afterwards. But
yeah, I mean, I've repaired my electronics before as well, but sometimes I just don't want to. I don't care to if it's a super tedious task or something like that.
Oh yeah,
like I'll pay $20 or whatever to go get it repaired. And like as I said, I don't think everyone's gonna en masse download all these manuals and start fixing their own stuff. I don't think it's going to be that sort of landslide. So I don't think it's going to hurt them too much. I just think it should be available if someone would like to. I think someone should be able to have access to it.
I think this will really just help the businesses that do replace batteries and screens and stuff like that.
Yeah,
because like I know I see like little stand-up shops and like shopping malls and just other stuff like that where they'll fix phones, and generally it's for a reasonable fee. So I think it'll really be good for them, and that'll help promote small business while also giving the consumers a cheaper price.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of breaks up the monopoly. You're not you're not going straight back to the company that you bought it from to repair their own device. You can go to someone else who may give you a different advice or a different price. I know there's, especially with the Genius Bar, there's several videos on YouTube of, and again, this is obviously it's not concrete evidence or anything like that, but people have gone in there with simple device fixes, and the Genius Bar has basically told them that it can't be fixed and they have to buy a new device. I've seen dozens of videos on this on YouTube. If you look up like Genius Bar scam or whatever, they've gone up to the counter and they've opened up their own MacBook and like disconnected the display like cord or something like that. And then they put it back together and just kind of tested the Genius Bar, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll take a look at it. And they come back out and they're like, oh yeah, it's way beyond repair. You need to buy it. And it's like, okay, well, you could just go, you could probably go to the, mom and pop store, the little, computer repair store around the corner. They probably open it up in 5 minutes and fix it for you, for like $10. So like something like that would be extremely helpful. Because if this is actually happening at the Genius Bars, especially with Apple, then that should definitely be fixed, because that's borderline scamming.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Do you want to go over the Facebook encryption?
Oh yeah. So this article is real interesting. So there's a bunch of countries, not just the U.S. government, but the U.S. government, along with Australia and the U.K., they wrote a letter asking Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg to delay adding encryption to its messaging services until the company can ensure that the security feature won't be a detriment to public safety. Really, what they're talking about is how this would hinder law enforcement. But we can keep talking about it. The letter was signed by U.S. Attorney General William Barr, U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Kevin McAleny. I don't know how to say that. UK Home Secretary Patri Patel, and Australian Minister for Home Affairs Peter Dutton. They all signed the letter that went to Facebook. And the letter was dated October 4th, and it said it's basically if Facebook adds encryption by default to its messaging services, it will hinder law enforcement's ability to find illegal activity that takes place on the services. And, this kind of gets into that whole debate, like with the dark web site we just talked about. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if it would have been a lot easier to find the perpetrator and people doing the bad things.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's a good enough reason, to be honest.
Oh no, I agree. But this is a whole debate. I was just bringing up like this is what happens. So like even here it says the U.S. Department of Justice is hosting a summit on this very issue that will focus on how encrypted communications hampers investigations into child sex exploitation. The effort comes after a speech William Barr made in July, which referred to warrant-proof encryption. And in quotes, he says, enabling dangerous criminals to cloak their communications and activities behind an essentially impenetrable digital shield.
That already happens. What are they talking about?
It does already happen, but this whole warrant-proof encryption, it's kind of referred to something that gets brought up a lot of having encryption with a backdoor that the government could use. Obviously, if there's a backdoor, not only the government is going to be able to use it, there will be other people.
Yeah, and that's not true encryption then. If someone has access to your conversation.
Oh yeah, and honestly, it gets real like a real shallow water. You're trying to like tread safely, and everything. Mm-hmm. But like, it's this huge debate that's been going on for years. Like actually, the Scoop article has a history of this encryption backdoor tension, and they go over a lot of things. In here talking about like how all this they mentioned the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act of 1994, which helped law enforcement wiretap phone calls. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's not that bad that like phone calls aren't encrypted. And it's interesting when you look into the whole encryption thing. There's like, what is it? Pretty good privacy, PGP. Yeah. For a time, encryption was actually considered in arms and couldn't be, what's the word? It couldn't be sent out of the U.S. essentially. And
oh, really?
Yeah. So there was a whole big First Amendment thing for that, because honestly, encryption and all this stuff is just code and coded speech, if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely. I think it's still your property, but So basically, what you're saying is the old the old Zuckerberg wanted to do something good finally, and now he's getting messed up for that as well.
Well, it's
Guy can't
interesting.
win.
The three countries that are in this are part of the Five Eyes Alliance, which I don't know if you know what that is.
I've heard of it
Basically,
before. Yeah.
it's the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, and the US, and they basically they're a lot more loose on sharing intelligence with each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as strict as like some of the other ones, but there's, I just thought that was interesting. Some of the other quotes is this one's from Zuckerberg. He says, "Our big push to get towards more encryption across our messaging apps will over time be very sensitive when we get closer to rolling it out. Law enforcement obviously is not going to be psyched about it." But he also said, "But we think it's the right thing to protect people's privacy more. So we'll go defend that when the time's right."
Mm.
So I think that's interesting. Like you said, it's weird seeing Mark Zuckerberg talk about privacy, even though Facebook is like horrible.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I watched his F8 speech, or at least part of it, and yeah, amidst the nervous, creepy laughter, it was, I don't know, it was kind of refreshing to hear him talk about privacy, even though he seems, I mean, he always seems uncomfortable, but he seemed very uncomfortable talking about the subject. And he even made fun of previous missteps, as it were.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he even said, he was like, "Yeah, we're going to talk about privacy." He's like, "And I know our company hasn't had a very good track record with that." So I was like, "Oh no." But yeah, he did talk about it, and I mean, I'm all for it if it's implemented correctly. I know WhatsApp they've claimed that was encrypted, and we saw how that turned out pretty poorly. If anyone hasn't followed it.
I think we can both agree that encryption for like their services, because Facebook owns, Instagram, WhatsApp, obviously Facebook. I want to say there might be one other thing. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that would be a really good thing too. But I don't know. Zuckerberg has also acknowledged that Facebook has a responsibility to work with law enforcement to help prevent child exploitation and terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently some UK government official said that they've not seen sufficient effort from Facebook to change how they act. So Facebook might just be saying all this. Who knows?
I mean, I wouldn't be I hope not. I wouldn't be surprised, but I really hope that they are trying to write their website. Because, I mean, in front of Congress, he also said that the site is responsible for what people post on their site, which, in my opinion, was a mistake to say that.
Why is that?
I mean, he shouldn't take responsibility for what people post on his site. He shouldn't publicly acknowledge that.
He accepted responsibility?
Yeah, he accepted. They said, "Are you responsible for what's posted on your site?" And he said, "Yes." So that was not in my opinion, that was a mistake.
Oh, no. Yeah, he should have said this is the user's stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Once it's posted, I mean, once, a person decides to post something that's, really having any control over it, you can be reactive, but you can't really be proactive against that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a mistake, but if he is actually taking that seriously, and he is saying, yes, we are responsible, and he's trying to actually protect people's privacy on his site, I see that as a huge step forward if it's implemented correctly. And I mean, I would say screw everyone else who's against it, because they're still going to get the job done regardless. Speaking about law enforcement, I mean, as we just saw, they track someone down through freaking Bitcoin transactions, and I mean, getting people's servers IP on the dark web. I mean, one of the underbellies of the internet where a lot of shady activity goes on unhindered, but they were able to go in there and actually cause a lot of damage for the better. So that was, I mean, even if there is encryption or Facebook, whatever they implement, law enforcement's going to find a way to do what they have to do. It may make their job harder, but it also gives a lot of people a lot more safety and security and freedom. And I think it's worth it.
Well, I was just thinking, if there's a encryption that has a backdoor for the government, like, just think about how like unsecure like websites would come, like especially banking websites and stuff like that, where like your money and all your personal details are up on the line. Or
yeah, no, I don't agree with that at all. I don't think any backdoor or anything like that. Like, as I said, law enforcement will find a way. You're gonna catch whoever it is, if they really want to. So I don't think they need to have any backdoors or anything like that. I don't think it's necessary.
Well, and this is also another interesting thing. So that act we talked about that helped make law enforcement wiretaps easier.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI tried in 2010 and 2013 to expand the act to include all online communication software. Because right now it only is for the telecommunication companies to intercept phone calls. But obviously those two attempts have failed, but an official would not comment on whether they're still trying to push that.
Wow. So that would cover what? VoIP? That would cover like Skype calls and stuff like that? Is that?
Yeah, so all online communication software, that would be everything Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp,
Wow.
Signal. Obviously, I don't know if Signal would comply, but...
Yeah, true. I mean, if it was federal law, though, I don't see how they...
Well, hopefully Signal is not a U.S. Like organization or company, like their team. Hopefully it's somewhere else like Panama where they don't have to follow the laws of the U.S.
Or they can, like a lot of good VPN companies don't keep any records on their server. So if they do something like that, I mean, if they don't intercept the calls regardless, then what are they going to give the FBI?
Well, it's interesting you said that. There's been cases where VPN companies were hosted in the United States, and they were bragging on their website, "Oh yeah, we keep no logs, blah blah blah." And the next thing you know, they get a warrant or a subpoena or something, and then next thing you know, they're getting all these logs, and so like a lot of the good VPN companies are actually like hosted elsewhere, like Panama or I think Switzerland and the British Virgin Islands, stuff like that, like places with the very good privacy laws, and they generally don't comply that well to U.S. authorities, like probing and asking questions.
Well, I know there's been, I forgot which, there was like 2 VPN companies that I was reading about. They're hosted in the U.S. and they were given subpoenas for log files, and they just gave them the IP address of their servers, and they said, "This is all we keep on our servers. Like, we don't have any logs of users or anything like that." I can't remember what company it was, but it can happen. I mean, if they host it in the U.S., but they have if they do have to keep any logs, they're kept elsewhere where the U.S. can't touch it. But yeah, I definitely definitely look into where your companies are hosted that you're trusting with your privacy or anything else.
Yeah, if you guys are super into privacy, there's a website called privacytools.io. And they post all kinds of stuff. They have their recommended VPN servers, like Proton VPN, which is hosted in Switzerland. There's Molvad, which is in Sweden, or iVPN, which is based in Gibraltar. But they also go over everything. Like they talk about Tor, how to make your browser less trackable using like different things to automatically remove cookies when you close a tab and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely send it over, and we can put them in the show notes.
All right.
Yeah, they're definitely interesting. Good for people to. I mean, there's so much stuff that people just in their own home can do to help block some of this stuff. I mean, the tools are there. People just have to know or learn how to use them if they really want to be private on the internet. I mean, as much as you can without without going overboard. I mean, you don't have to use like freaking Tails OS or something like that. I mean,
oh, come on now. I love Tails.
Oh, yeah. So does Snowden.
hey, Snowden loves Signal too. So
yeah, this is true. For anyone that doesn't know, Tails OS is a operating system that you can plug it in from a USB, and it just runs off the USB. So it's not installed or anything. And once it's closed down and unplugged, it gets wiped. Like there's nothing but the OS left on there. So if you are super into security, or you just want to try it out for yourself, it's free to download. You can go grab it and put it on a USB drive. Or if you're doing any sort of super sensitive banking or anything like that, you can do that off of Tails as well. I don't know. I did it just for fun. I like messing around with other OSs, so I put it on a USB and tried it. I was like, it works. Yeah, good shot, Snowden.
Yeah, this website's interesting. They mention a lot of things. They break down like everything for like video and voice calling. They have like ones they consider better than Skype or Google Hangouts. They mention different operating systems. Obviously, Linux is on there. They highly despise Windows 10. So like,
yeah.
You could take some of this as you will, but if you were to follow, like they even have Bitwarden on there, which we mentioned.
Mhm.
They have all kinds of apps. They talk about which file encryption software is the best to use.
Yeah, I'll have to look this up because this definitely seems like something worth checking out.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on here. All right. Well, I think that's all I got. Do you have anything else?
I'm saying I can talk about something if you want.
All right, sure. Let's go over another one.
Another one?
Another one.
All right, so we'll talk about how Apple's iTunes and iCloud have a Windows 0 day, which has been exploited in ransomware attacks. There's a criminal group who's behind BitPaymer and iEncrypt ransomware attacks, and they've been exploiting this vulnerability that comes bundled with Apple's iTunes and their iCloud software. So if you've ever installed those, you install Bonjour, which is the zero configuration network communication protocol, which works in the background, and it tries to make everything easier. I know certain printers like it, different NAS. I think Lacey used to use it back with their little network attached hard drives back in the day. I'm not sure if they still do. But basically, that's the vulnerable component of it. And the thing is when you uninstall iTunes and iCloud, it doesn't uninstall Bonjour as well. So, like, even if you've had it on your computer before, you got to make sure you manually uninstall Bonjour.
Yeah, I was gonna say, on my old laptop, I used to have iTunes for my iPod, and yeah, I uninstalled iTunes, and I was like, why did it not uninstall the full program? And on mine, I don't know if this is across everyone's, but I tried to uninstall Bonjour. It did not uninstall. It removed it from the control panel, but it kept all its files. So I had to go through and I had to scrub it out of my system. So I don't know if that maybe my laptop was infected years ago. I don't know, but it would not leave, and I had to scrub it out of there. So just make sure it actually deletes everything if you are going to delete it. So is Apple going to patch this, or have they responded?
Oh yeah, so we can talk about the patch. So after immediately discovering the attack, that people at the Morphisec Labs, they shared the details with Apple, who just yesterday, so this post was on October 10th. So on October 9th, Apple released iCloud for Windows 10.7, and then iCloud for Windows 7.14, and then iTunes 12.10.1, which addressed the vulnerability.
So they are patching this. This isn't like a...
Yes, they are patching it. Okay. And apparently it looks like it just affected Windows, so obviously it should be fine.
Okay, so all the Mac users are safe for now.
For now.
For now, yeah.
But so basically what happened with Bonjour is they had this unquoted service path vulnerability, which basically is it's a security flaw that occurs when a path of an executable contains spaces in the file name, and it's not enclosed in quotes. So then you could be planning a malicious executable file to the parent path, and then tricking legitimate and trusted applications into executing this program, maintain persistence, and evade detection.
Oh wow, that's pretty clever actually. So they're using mistakes in the code basically to manipulate it.
Yeah, and this unquoted service path is a kind of a common software security flaw. So, kind of makes me wonder how much Apple actually tests their stuff before they just push it out. But
obviously not well enough.
But because of this, they were able to find it. Like this exploit was in doing selling the BitPaymer ransomware and different stuff like that.
Jeez.
So at least it's being updated. That's pretty much all for this little story.
Yeah. Did they say who pushed it out? Who was behind it?
The ransomware?
Yeah.
In this article, it just says the criminal group behind BitPaymer and iEncrypt. So it doesn't have a name for the group.
So whoever that is, then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe they don't know who it is.
But they discovered that this exploitation was used in a vulnerability in August when they targeted an unnamed enterprise in the automotive industry with the BitPaymer ransomware. So this has been affecting people. Okay. And the amazing cybersecurity researchers at Morphisec Labs were able to discover it and point it to Apple and get it fixed. So
that's good. I mean, seriously, thank God for these freaking Good Samaritan groups out there.
Exactly.
I mean, oh my word, I couldn't imagine if there were what's that virus hunter, the Morpheus thing you just talked about, or the freaking just Good Samaritans, on the interwebs, giving shout outs to these companies, telling them that their stuff is broken. I mean, I couldn't imagine how many vulnerabilities and viruses would be out there if these people weren't finding these vulnerabilities.
Oh yeah, it'd be back like early 2000s or 90s, when the internet was still young.
Oh yeah,
those viruses were interesting. If y'all have a chance, look them up. It actually it wouldn't be all sneaky like new viruses. They'd be like, "Ha, your computer's compromised. We're like getting everything." Your computer's like SOL and have like some meme pop up.
Yeah.
Those were pretty funny.
Oh my word. Those halcyon days of the internet.
I know when I was a little kid, there's a pop up on a website and it was like, "Is your computer ready? Download this thing." And so I click it, and the next thing I know, the computer is like flashing all kinds of random colors. And my dad's like, "What you do to the computer?" And like you have to like spend hours fixing it and everything.
Oh yeah, I did that. I did that as well when I was a kid.
Because I was like, "Yeah, the computer is kind of slow." Yeah,
when my parents first got Wi-Fi, I got my laptop and hooked it up, and I was like, "Oh yo!" I click all the things, and after a while, I get random pop-ups in the background of my computer, and like it's running super slow, take forever to start. And I was like, "What is wrong with this thing?" I finally I didn't even have an antivirus at that time, so I downloaded an antivirus and started scanning, and it was like, "Yeah, there's like 300 viruses you got on here." Like, oh, that's good.
Well, speaking of 300 viruses, it was kind of interesting. This is an older DEF CON talk, but this guy was essentially like, he was looking for work, and this company approached him. Little did he know it's like this virus group, and basically he wrote a virus, and then the virus group would sell it to other people, like, "Hey, we have these machines." And then so those people would put their own viruses on the machine, and it would just kind of cascade until like there's just like snowball until there's like 300 viruses on the machine.
Oh my word! Maybe that's what.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I'll see if I can find it maybe in the show notes.
Yeah, if you can find it, I'll put it.
Some of these old DEF CON things were hilarious.
Oh my word! I definitely want to look up some of those older stories, because there are some crazy stories from back in the day, like of how viruses got spread and stuff like that. Like it's very, very different from how it is now. Oh my word! Yeah, I'll have to look up some older stories for next time.
I think it's this one from DEF CON 18. I'll make sure to watch it a little bit.
Oh, that's not too much. That's not too old.
Man, it's 2010. It's about 10 years ago, man. Like,
I mean, that's not too old.
That's when DEF CON was still at the Riviera, and they were able to do things,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Not trying to get off on a tangent, but DEF CON, like teenagers and whatnot would go over, and like they would steal like the hotel floor mat, and like there'd be all kinds of underage drinking, and
oh no.
And so like DEF CON would get a bill like, "Yep, that doormat was $300. This thing was broke. Here's another." And like they'd have to go like, "Charlie, your parents here, blah blah blah," kind of thing, and the pool parties and all kinds of
back
stuff.
when it was lit. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Oh man, if I could go back to those DEF CONs, it would be game over.
Just kidding. That is illegal activity. We do not condone illegal activity.
Sometimes.
If any potential sponsors are listening, we do not condone illegal activity. Bitwarden, cover your ears. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I think we're going to end it there. We've rambled for long enough, wasted enough of your time.
I wouldn't call it wasted. Come on now.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, this is quality. This is quality content right here.
Exactly.
It's that good stuff. It's that good. All right. Well, we'll talk to you later. All right. Bye.
Bye.